So what is the cozy fantasy genre? Whenever the topic of genre pops up, it's hard to pin down exactly what fits where. Most things that get made fall into genre either by sticking close to a structure pioneered by its successful predecessors, or people assign it to a genre after the fact, based mostly on vibes. Legends and Lattes doesn't just fall into the cozy fantasy genre, it's popularized it and codified it as a category into the minds of readers, and maybe more importantly, publishers. We're likely to see a lot more books in this burgeoning genre, and whether those feel like cash grabs or not will depend on indescribable qualities that set good authors and good books apart in the first place. But what is the cozy fantasy genre? It's not as easy to describe as romance or mystery or thriller. But for me, when trying to figure out why this is a genre, it was discovering that each of those genres have something in common. They're all trying to evoke an emotion, a feeling. A romance wants your heart to flutter, to break, and to be made whole again. A mystery wants your brain working around the twists and turns, playing Sherlock against the novel's Moriarty. A thriller wants you on the edge of your seat, the constant action making you turn the next page with the same energy that the characters feel when dodging bullets and jumping from planes. And cozy fantasy? That wants you to feel at home. It wants you to feel the warmth of a fire, a hot drink, a loved one snuggled up next to you on the couch, just to stave off the cold outside. Cozy fantasy is hard to nail down, but that's mostly because the other genres have already been codified already. There are cheat codes, outlines, tried and true methods to achieving that desired emotion from the reader. But with cozy fantasy, it's not as clear-cut. You can't have no plot or conflict, because then the book is just boring. You can't have too high stakes, because then you're exiting the world of cozy fantasy and entering high fantasy. And you can't linger too long in the dark night of the soul moments, or things become too grim, making your cozy story a bummer story. In Legends and Lattes, we follow Viv, an orc mercenary at the end of her long adventuring career, having just completed her one last job that so many stories start at the beginning of. Those stories often end tragically though, and this one intends for a happily ever after. It's life after the curtain closes. Slice of life, actually. Slice of life is a genre of story that's very popular in anime. It often focuses on a group of friends engaged in some shared activity, be it a club or school. There are elements of drama, romance, and often trauma. It's that trauma that the slice of life is attempting to heal. It's a genre that shows you that life can go on, that you can find a family, you can heal. I think that maybe this book was perfectly positioned to be an escape for a world of people exiting a global pandemic. Here was something that was wholesome and endearing, a world of fantasy where the magic was in the small, everyday things. That's the kind of story Travis Baldree is trying to tell with Viv in Legends and Lattes. When Viv leaves her party to start her coffee shop, she has a nest egg of funds from her life of adventuring, as well as a secret stone gained from her last job that's supposed to bring her good fortune in this next phase of her life. This brings up an element to these stories that's often intrigued me, and I want to talk about it. Often, the main character in these kinds of stories has some sort of secret that they're hiding from the people around them, something that they fear would bring their life tumbling down around their ears should it ever come out. And when it does come out, things go wrong, and the character thinks that they were right, that they should go back to their old ways and shut out the world again, brave the cold alone, and forsake the warmth. Better that than the horror of being known. When the worst happens to Viv and she loses almost everything, she's terrified. Terrified of imposing. Terrified that without something to offer, she's just going to be a burden. Terrified that if the others knew who she truly was, the real her, they wouldn't want anything to do with her. The heart-wrenching truth that comes out is that her friends already knew much more about her true self than she ever thought they did. Her secrets weren't even close to enough to break or even shake their bond. If someone wants to take a genre pillar for cozy fantasy, like the pillar of romantic comedy where a miscommunication has to break up the main pair before some truth comes out and they get back together, this would be it. The fear of being known, causing a moment of darkness, but leading to true and honest acceptance. That's a very warm feeling. A cozy feeling. Since we mentioned the slice of life genre, I think it's important to mention that though cozy fantasy is gaining popularity now in lit, it's already had a lot of popularity in other genres, like film, TV, and games. Games like Stardew Valley, Coffee Talk, Spiritfarer, movies like My Neighbor Totoro and other Ghibli films, even Hallmark movies kind of have that cozy slice of life feel. Slice of life TV shows like Lucky Star or On High Host Club, those feel like undeniable entries into the cozy fantasy genre. But what about things that make you feel cozy when playing it? Maybe World of Warcraft or Elden Ring make you feel warm, even as you rain fire and death upon your enemies. Maybe nothing gives you cozier feelings than Lord of the Rings, even as Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli hew through hordes of orcs. Maybe you love to curl up on the couch as special detectives discuss the motives of brutal murders. This, I think, is the greatest argument against the codified genre of cozy or cozy fantasy. Sometimes achieving the emotions that cozy fantasy is after isn't best served by going after it directly. It's like, what's sadder on screen? Showing a character crying or trying not to cry? Maybe showing a character living cozily isn't the most effective way to get after those cozy feelings. To me, cozy is the Wild West. It's the hardest emotion to nail, especially with new content. The reason I'd say that is one of the most important elements to that emotion is comfort. And comfort is most easily achieved by consuming something you're used to, something you've had 100 times. Enough to know what it gives you, but not enough to be boring. A yearly rewatch of your favorite show, a Christmas Lord of the Rings marathon, ignoring the piles of untouched games in your Steam library just to open up the old favorites yet again. It's nostalgia. There's no risk you'll be getting anything other than what you came for. Legends and Lattes is excellent because it is a straight across the plate success at doing exactly what it advertises it will do. But that could be a problem if it becomes a template for books in the genre going forward. Are cozy fantasy novels doomed to be a genre that serves up more of the same? A genre built not to challenge us? The thing is, other genres have that too. There's plenty of paint-by-numbers approaches to writing mystery, romance, thriller. So while there are definitely going to be lazy novels that do exactly that, the paint-by-numbers approach, I think that good authors can take this genre in new and unique directions. Because while Legends and Lattes has popularized cozy fantasy now, there are other books that I feel capture the cozy fantasy genre in their own ways. Terry Pratchett's Discworld series is the perfect example of this for me. It doesn't tackle cozy through plot, it does it through character and tone. The tone is often light and comedic, the protagonists well-meaning in their own unique ways, and their supporting cast is supportive. The stakes can be high, but the feeling is always grounded. While the story may be about doing something important for the world, the important thing for the protagonist is finding and building a home filled with people who care for each other. This is true of Going Postal, Guards, Mort, and Small Gods. It's a big series. I'm still getting through a lot of them. But there are other book series that do this too. Neil Gaiman's Stardust is a book that feels really cozy to me. Goldman's The Princess Bride, Ursula Le Guin's Earthsea books, Dana Wynne Jones with Howl's Moving Castle. And there's a reason that all of those books have been adapted into movies that also feel cozy. And those books have nothing to do with the plot or structure that Travis Baldree pioneered in Legends and Lattes, but to me still absolutely capture the feeling of cozy fantasy. I was worried that Legends and Lattes might be overhyped. I was in a Barnes & Noble, grabbed a coffee, and decided to pick it up and just read a few pages. And honestly, it hooked me right from the start. It seemed to be delivering on exactly what it promised. And having finished it, read it a lot in the bath, on the couch, tossed on some nice music, had a coffee, and it gave me exactly what I was looking for. It's not overhyped, it absolutely delivers on the promise of the premise. So while I think there's a lot of track yet to be laid in front of the cozy fantasy genre and to help build it out and expand it, I am really happy with this book and hope that people take it in new and unique directions going forward. Thanks so much for watching, and special thanks to my patrons for helping support the content I'm bringing to you. If you're interested in supporting the channel, I have a Patreon that gives you access to a Dungeons & Dragons supplement called the Codex of Contagion that reworks diseases in D&D. If that sounds cool to you, I'd encourage you to check it out. My name's Ben DeHart, and I'm going to go cozy up with a nice book. See ya. I've already read this one. This is just for you guys to kind of see. You get it. All right, get out of here.